So they took this long plastic tube out of this, sterile package, and there's a doctor and a nurse on my left side, and there's another nurse sitting on my right side, and she's letting me like grasp her hand. So they're like, I don't remember if they explained to me what was going to happen in detail or not, but they took the tube, which had a nice rounded end, and they start to stick it up my nostril. And then they go, oh no, and I remember this, I don't think I'm making it up. They go, oh no, it's going the wrong way, pull it back out. And I went, what? And they go, so they start putting it back up and again, and then you can feel it go up your nose and then go down the back of your throat, and you can feel the tip of the hose like touching the back of your throat as it's going down, and then it goes all the way down into your stomach. And even though there aren't really nerve endings in your stomach, like you can feel like the tip of the tube in your stomach. And meanwhile, I'm throwing out the side of my mouth because I don't do good with things that keep me from breathing. So, and I know I'm squeezing this nurse's hand until she probably lost all circulation. So they stick the tube down there. Obviously, they're like pulling material out of my stomach to see if I'm bleeding from my stomach. And then when they're done, they didn't pull it out really fast, but they didn't pull it out slow. It went like this, which is not slow if you consider that it's like all the way down your esophagus. Anyway, so that happened, and that was like literally one of the worst experiences I've ever experienced. I wasn't bleeding from my stomach. They ended up giving me the blood transfusion. Everything was fine. So I was in the ICU for about 5 or 6 days, and then they moved me to the burn unit, which at Children's Hospital, which is kind of a wonderful place because of the nature of those injuries and those sores, injuries. Basically people have expanses of exposed flesh. That's what a burn is. So I had two. I should back up and tell you about my actual burns. So I had a 3rd-degree burn on the inside of my right calf, which is fairly large, and people mistake it for like a motorcycle burn because that's right where it is. I had 2 3rd-degree burns on my left thigh, just above my knee. And then I have 2 smaller burns like on my back left shoulder and my back left, like right above my buttocks, that are 2nd-degree burns. The 3rd-degree burns on my legs required a skin graft. So they plane off like a layer of your skin, somewhere unobtrusive, inner thigh in my case. And then which I don't think you can even see that anymore. And then they stamp holes in it so you can expand it. So you can still see, it looks like I used to tell people I got burned by a flying waffle iron because it looks like there's a pattern, a dimple pattern there. But they take that skin and they put it on there and they staple it on. And then I have little tiny, super little tiny burns on my fingertips, and I had some on the back of my head, which people told me were probably from tiny little arcs of electricity. So if only somebody had recorded that to see what it's like.
What did they tell you?
That these tiny little scars were probably a result of really thin arcs of electricity. Anyway, so those are the burns. Now, I'm kind of going out of order here, but that surgery I had later on, a week or 2 after I was out of the danger zone. So 4 or 5 days in ICU, then they moved me up to the burn unit. And because of the nature of burns, it's an isolated hall. So very limited visitors. You can't interact with any of the rest of the hospital. Cleanliness and cleaning of the wounds is top priority. I think you got your wounds cleaned at least once a day, maybe twice. And I was there for 6 weeks. I was there for 1 week in the ICU and 5 weeks in the burn unit. So you really develop a close relationship with both the staff and the other patients. One of the other patients was a little girl who got her arm caught in a wringer washer, an old style washer that has a column and something that moves along the column that you can that squeezes the clothes. So she got her arm caught in a wringer washer, and of course that just pulled the skin off, so it's not a burn, but it's in effect the same kind of a wound. There was another boy there who's at his grandmother's house, and she would come visit once in a while, and she felt awful. He had pulled a pot of like hot soup down onto him from the oven, and he had burned himself with that. And so you got really close to these kids, and then there was a guy next to me, graphic part of the story, who was great. His name was Brock, but it was a terrible story. He had like multiple surgeries. He was from rural northern Ohio, and him and his Yahoo buddies were stealing gasoline from a neighbor's shed one time, and his friend said, "I can't see anything. Do you have a lighter?" And he lit his lighter, and both his hands were just burnt to a crisp. He was such a great guy. He was so resilient, but his hands were like just masses of scar tissue, and he had pins in all his fingers to keep them like apart so they could heal as best possible. But we were all super close, and it was really familial, and we would all go out into the hallway every day and play video games. And because my femur was broken, and because of where it was broken, I ended up being in a cast that was from all the way from my foot up to the top of my leg, and then it went around the bottom of my torso. So I couldn't use a regular wheelchair, so it was like a cart. It was like a wheelchair. It was like a flatbed wheelchair, basically. So I had my cart, so I'd roll my cart out into the hallway, and other people would pull up chairs, and we played video games on the TV in the hallway. One of my favorite memories of that time, or something that always stuck with me, was because of the nature of these wounds and they're so susceptible to infection, certain things couldn't come into the unit or the hallway, and one of the foods that carries something that can cause infection in those kinds of wounds is bananas. So when they would serve you bananas, they would serve them in a bowl of orange juice. So that became this kind of favorite flavor combination of mine, which I later turned into a cocktail that we serve every month at my movie theater when it's time to show the Rocky Horror Picture Show. So we call it Brad's Banana, and if you've ever seen the movie, you know why we call it that. But it's basically orange juice and 99 bananas. Because the kids love their sugar. Those kids love their sugar.
What do you call the drink?
Brad's Banana. Another cool thing that happened when I was in the burn unit was we got a visit from Jimmy Crumb. Now, if you are from Columbus and you're as old as I am, you remember Jimmy Crumb was a sportscaster on Channel 4 when there were channels instead of like networks. And he did a lot of work with like sick kids and kids in the hospital, and he was famous for wearing really loud jackets. And he did come to the burn unit one time and visit the kids, and that was super cool. Another thing that stands out about the burn unit was or the hospital in general, at night, the woman who did the announcements over the loudspeaker would speak really quiet, like sultry AF. She'd be like, "Dr. Jones, emergency room, stat." So that was funny. So I got out 6 weeks, pretty functional, and then later that year in like November, when I was gonna go see the Thompson Twins at the Ohio Center, we were all so psyched, me and all my middle school friends. I had to have a surgery right before that concert to fuse the epiphysis on my or the growth plate on my other leg, so that my legs wouldn't be such different heights that it would cause a problem. They are technically different heights as it is, but they did that in time so that I wouldn't need like a special shoe. But I couldn't go see the Thompson Twins, which was really, really sad, and I was really mad. And I yelled at my parents. I was like, I can go to a concert in crutches. And I could book on those crutches, dude. Like, you know the Skeksis and the Dark Crystal? It's not the Skeksis, it's whatever those people ride, and they have those big arms, and I could book on those crutches. But they wouldn't let me go to the concert anyway, so. I thought for sure I had 20 minutes.
You're at 10 seconds. You're good.
10 seconds!
Woohoo!